Hello and welcome back to Crimes, Lies, and Alibis. I'm Nicole again, and we are going to be finishing up the first day of Lori Vallow Daybell's murder trial. I call her Lori Vallow because, yeah, she married Chad Daybell, but that would not have been able to happen if I don't believe that she had her first or her fourth husband killed. Um, I know that in most cases, well, and in this case too, she is innocent until proven guilty. But with her already being found guilty of murdering her two children or being a part of their murders, it's, you know, whatever. Do I think she had a hand in it? How that day occurred? I do. She still has her day in court, or as really it is several weeks in court. This is one trial. She does have another trial coming up for conspiracy to commit murder, but thankfully that person is still alive and apparently in that courtroom today. There's about an hour of this left, and then after this, I'm hoping to watch with you the hour of Lori's police interview to kind of give us a little bit more insight to how she was that day, her demeanor, how she behaved, how, not really how her brother behaved because he wasn't in that room with her, but she was obviously very calm. It was not a situation that seemed elevated like it should have been with the context of what the opening prosecutor said in her opening, that Lori had taken the phone from Charles. That was what spiraled this whole situation. He was going to pick up JJ and take him to school. That was it. That's all that had happened that morning. He was there to pick JJ up, take him to school, but Lori took his phone from him and would not return it to his person. And that was upsetting to him. And so that's how all of this ensued. But the only person that's still alive that could actually testify what happened in that house that day is Lori, because Tylee is gone, JJ is gone, Charles is gone, and her brother is gone. So all out of the 5 people involved on the day Charles Vallow died, out of those 5 people, the only person still alive is Lori.
Just a couple more things. You mentioned that you briefed the detectives. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what did you tell them in that briefing?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Are his statements hearsay as well, Your Honor?
Any out-of-court statement is hearsay unless there's an exception or it's non-hearsay under the rules. So yes, his out-of-court statements are hearsay. Go ahead.
But you did brief the detectives before you headed to the police station? Is that correct?
I did.
And who was there? Do you remember?
Nate Moffat, Cassie, I think my
Is that
sergeant.
Detective Inklin? I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
Oh,
And just off recollection, I think there was another one, but off of recollection, I don't remember.
and that was about how long before you left to go to the police station?
$10 minutes, maybe?
And how long do you think you were speaking with them?
Under a minute.
Under a minute
Yes.
for the briefing?
Yes.
Did you meet with the prosecutor to go over your testimony today?
I did.
When was that?
2 weeks ago, maybe?
How long did that meeting last?
Probably around an hour total.
How is this relevant? Why is this important?
Did you review this report before you came to testify today as well?
I did.
And it was not part of your duty to check anything in the perimeter? You weren't looking for evidence, you were just dealing with the shooter? Is that correct?
Well, not just the shooter, but scene management, making sure the resources were en route. But yes, managed.
What all does that entail, scene management?
Well, once we knew there was not a threat out, I instructed Officer Wiz to set up an inner and outer perimeter with crime scene tape.
What else?
Make sure I had a supervisor en route, and then manage the people that walked up to the scene.
Who was that supervisor en route, do you know?
Bill Nacella, my sergeant.
How many people do you think came up to you at that scene?
Why is
Well,
she
not up
giggling?
to me, but I instructed one gentleman that was walking on the sidewalk towards us, he needed to just leave the area. This didn't concern him. And then you and your daughter walked up to me, and I just asked you to go back to your car.
Why is she giggling? It's not funny. I fail to see the humor in the situation. She's so weird.
Did you have any conversations with your supervisor when he arrived?
I did.
When was that?
At some point between me arriving on scene and me leaving the scene.
Closer to arriving or closer to leaving? Maybe.
Chocolate milkshake says about halftime.
Okay. How long do you think that conversation was?
Well, you saw it on the body-worn camera, so a minute and a half maybe.
And he was just checking in with you to make sure everything was going well, that you were scene managing. Is that correct?
Objection, relevance. And hearsay.
Well, overruled, he can answer.
I was briefing him on what I knew thus far, what I was told.
And that was less than a minute?
Yeah.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
So it took less than a minute to brief him on everything that had happened that day so far?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
And it took less than a minute to brief the detectives as well of what happened that
What
day?
he just said.
Objection, asked and answered.
She
I'll
has
allow that one. Go
nothing.
ahead.
Not what happened, what my portion was and what I knew happened.
So what you wrote in your report, basically, what you were told. Is that correct?
Yes.
She has no questions.
So
It's
it
like
took
she's
you
stalling.
3 pages to write what you were told, but it took you less than a minute to discuss that with the detectives? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
She's so out of her element here.
How long was that transport from the residence to the Chandler Police Department?
In miles, probably 8 miles, 10 miles maybe.
How long do you think that took around?
10 to 15 minutes maybe.
And then where did you enter into the police station? Is there a garage or something?
I don't recollect where I parked. There's various areas you can park at the police department to access the
Okay,
area
but why
that
does
I
this
access,
matter?
so
Why is this
I'm unable to
important?
answer. I don't know where I parked.
Okay, and you were able to walk Alex into the police station, is that correct?
Yes,
And he was unhandcuffed, is that correct?
correct.
And then you took him into an interrogation room, is that correct?
Yes,
She asked
And
all these
then
things already,
Detective
I thought.
Moffat
Let me
took
visit the
over.
other one.
yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear, okay. Did
Can I-
your supervisor, Nacella, did he come to the police station as well?
Not with me, nor did I talk to him. He might have, but I don't know.
You didn't see him there?
Correct.
Okay. But you saw Detective Moffat there?
Yes.
And you saw Detective Inklin there?
I don't remember England. I just remember Moffat relieved me.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, redirect.
Thank you.
Well, that feels like a pointless round of questioning.
At the beginning of cross-examination, you were asked about Alex Cox's demeanor. Do you recall that?
I do?
And you had advised that he was nonchalant and calm, right?
Yes.
And you were asked whether or not you were nonchalant and calm too, correct?
Yes.
Had you just shot someone?
No.
You were asked if the firefighters were calm and nonchalant. Had they just shot someone?
As far as I know, no.
How about Officer Wiz? You said he was nonchalant and calm too. Had he just shot anyone?
No.
So it's not really exactly the same to compare you to the shooter, right?
No.
Correct. I would not compare us.
When you went up to the scene, you had your gun drawn on him, correct?
Yes.
Still nonchalant and calm?
Yes.
You were asked a lot also about your nonchalant and calm appearance today in court. Are you stressed or just answering questions to the best of your knowledge?
The latter, just answering questions to the best of my knowledge.
You had to testify before?
I have.
You were asked about the injury to Alex Cox. We have seen the body-worn camera footage and we cut it off at some point. When Mr. Cox first came out of the house, he did not have his hand to his head, correct?
Correct.
You told us you didn't notice an injury at that point?
Correct.
When he first sat down on the curb before you moved him, did you notice an injury at that point?
I did not.
Was he touching his head at that point?
Recollection, I don't remember.
At some point in the video that we watched, did we see Alex Cox touch his head?
Yes.
When you were watching him, did you at times see him rubbing his head?
Yes.
The towel or paper towel or whatever that was in his hand, was that the only item you ever saw him using to rub or touch his head?
Yes.
Was it soaked or saturated in blood?
No.
Can we see it on the body cam that it's mostly white?
Yes.
So if we want to really know how long it was that he was seated before he touched his head, we could watch the time on the body cam, right?
Yes.
You were asked if you met with the prosecutor previously. When we met, did you have to watch that entire body cam?
Yes.
And is that when you actually initialed it, exhibit number 1 there, so that you would recognize it in court?
Yes.
You were asked about when you arrived and when you later transported Alex Cox to the precinct. Would looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when you had at least taken him to the precinct?
Yes.
If I could have my paralegal bring up the CAD report.
Go ahead.
Does that help refresh your recollection as to when you arrived back at the precinct with Alex Cox?
It does.
And when was that?
9:18 and 19 seconds.
And so the 911 call was at 8:36 a.m.?
That's when I received it. It could have come into the dispatch a few minutes earlier.
And you said you arrived, and we saw you on the body cam right after Officer Where's Biggie, who got there around 8:41?
Yes.
So you were with Alex Cox at the scene and talking to Lori Vallow and her daughter and doing those briefings in that 20, 30 minutes?
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor.
All right, I see at least one juror question in a bin. If there are any juror questions, please pass them down at this time. Go ahead, the state has a follow-up
Just one question, and I don't know if the CAD will help you answer that. Do you know when you were finished with this call? What time it was when you were finished or released from this call and able to go back out?
It was probably 5 minutes after, maybe 10, probably 10 minutes. I probably used the restroom, to be honest with you, and got something to drink at the station, water. So maybe 10 or 15 minutes after the detective came in the room is when I hit the 10-8 button and I went and took other calls for service.
Okay, so you were done with this call before the end of your shift?
Oh, yes.
Okay, you didn't go back to the scene to help with scene security or anything like that?
No.
No other questions?
Did the defendant have any follow-up?
No, we're fine, Your Honor.
All right, this witness can step down. You want to hand me that? Thank you. All right. You can call your next witness. The podium here and be sworn in by my clerk.
Can you spell your name for the record?
Scott, S-C-O-T-T, Alex, C-O-W.
Please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, you're going to come up this little ramp, have a seat right here.
Sir, would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Scott Cowden,
And where do you work?
Chandler Fire Department,
How long have you worked there?
almost 26 years.
And talk to you a little bit about what firefighters do. Do you just respond to fires, or are you also responsible for something else?
No, the majority of our job is going to be EMS medical calls.
What kind of training do you have to work as a firefighter and deal with medical calls?
When you're hired, you're going to go through an academy that will certify you as a state firefighter. Typically, you're going to already be certified as an EMT. And then during the course of your career, I went to paramedic school and graduated from that in probably 2007.
Can you tell us what the difference is between a paramedic and an EMT?
EMT would just be kind of the more basic kind of entry-level position. Paramedic is more advanced, so you have more advanced training. There's more advanced skills that you could perform. Some of our equipment would only be able to be used and utilized and performed by a paramedic.
As both a EMT or a paramedic, are you trained to perform CPR?
Yes.
And can you tell us, have you ever been a CPR instructor yourself?
Yes, I was a CPR instructor for probably over 12 years.
Was that for other firefighters?
I was certified through American Heart Association, a contract employee with Dignity Health. They have a variety of different classes that could be for just the lay rescuer, lay person that wants to know how to do CPR. They have classes that might be for certain businesses that want their employees. And then there's healthcare provider classes that it could be firefighters, nurses that are attending to be recertified. Every 2 years, you have to have that certification recertified.
Can you tell us what CPR is?
It stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So you're kind of acting as the heart. The heart has stopped beating, so no blood is flowing through the body. You're doing chest compressions on the chest, and you're pumping and pushing that blood to the body.
When would you give CPR to a person?
If they don't have a pulse, you confirm that just by checking for a pulse, and you don't feel that, the heart isn't beating, and you would need to start chest compressions.
What is the point of that, of doing those chest compressions? You said moving the blood through the body. Why?
You're trying to, give them a chance, increase their chance of survival. I don't know what maybe the latest numbers and statistics might say, but in the past I've seen it say that if somebody's starts CPR within the first few minutes, it can double or triple their chances of surviving.
When you are called to a scene, are you guys being given updates by the 911 operator to your dispatch so you know what to expect?
Yeah, so you get dispatched and you already have an idea of the type of call, and then en route we call it PTI, and that will come across the computer screen. And so now you have more information of what you're kind of walking into, so you can kind of game plan it a little bit more.
If somebody calls 911 and doesn't know how to do CPR, what happens?
My understanding is that 911 would talk them through that and give them instructions of what to do.
Okay. When you are giving CPR, you talked about chest compressions. Can you talk to us about, is there any physical identification that you might observe on a person who has had CPR chest compressions?
That I might see.
After a person has been given chest compressions?
Yes. So you need to perform it in the right location. So it's the lower half of the sternum or breastbone. To kind of find that, it's more helpful if you can see the skin, maybe lift up the shirt. So that's typically something we're going to want to do. If CPR has been done and it's been done effectively enough, you can see almost like a depression or an impression that is left there on the skin, because you need to do it forceful enough and deep enough that you're actually compressing the heart to push the blood.
So you said you might see a depression. Does that not just pop right back out when you stop?
No, you'll still see it. You'll see it like if you stop CPR during the call for whatever reason that it might be appropriate, and then you go back to resuming CPR, you'll see where your hands were. That area can be vulnerable to breaking. Ribs can break during CPR, so there's typically depression in the chest.
Do you ever actually hear anything when you are giving someone chest compressions?
I for sure feel it. I don't know if it's audible enough to hear it, especially with maybe the rest of the commotion that's going on, but you definitely feel that crunch or that crack. I kind of compare it to like if you're cracking your knuckles in your hands or something, your fingers. It kind of feels like something like that, but more extreme, I guess.
And this is something that you have felt multiple times in doing CPR?
Yes, and teaching CPR, you want to forewarn people of that too, that to kind of expect that and not necessarily kind of be alarmed. You don't want them to think they've caused more harm necessarily.
Does that crack or crunch occur each time you restart CPR in the same patient?
No, it's typically just the first couple of times.
Have you previously performed CPR on a person who was shot?
I'm sure I probably have.
When you are performing CPR on a person that's shot, have you ever seen that cause more blood to come out if there are gunshot wounds?
Yes, I've been on some scenes where, it's been a little more bloody, so to speak. You have to be cautious of where you're stepping, or if you're kneeling down by the patient's side to perform the CPR, you're trying to be careful of that.
I want to bring you to July 11th of 2019, a call to 5531 South Four Peaks Place. Do you recall this incident?
Yes.
Do you still have some independent memory of this?
Yes.
Was it the fact that the police interviewed you also make this a more memorable scene?
Yes.
Do you recall when you first got to the scene, did you just drive right up, or how did you guys approach the scene?
Call types like this, we're going to stage and wait for PD to clear the scene so it's safe to enter. So you're going to get into in this particular case, you're going to be in the neighborhood, but you're going to be around the corner, around the block, a street away, whatever kind of might make the most sense based on where we're coming from.
Okay. How many people are on a fire engine?
In the city of Chandler, we typically have at least 4 on any of our fire engines and fire ladders.
And what was your role?
So you'll have a captain who's up front. That's the person that's in charge. I'm a fire engineer specifically, so I drive the fire apparatus. And then we'll have 2 firefighters in the back seat.
Do you recall in this case about how far away you were staged?
I mean, from a time standpoint, we might have been 30 seconds away.
Who were the other people on your team that day,
By names?
if you recall?
Okay, Captain Keller, firefighters Kaczynski, and firefighter Fife.
When you arrive at a scene like this, you told us that there's a captain, you're the driver. Does everyone sort of have a job, or how does that work when you first get there?
You typically may kind of talk about roles and what might happen. Also, like in this particular case, this was our first call of the day. So all of our calls, we're going to do some documentation and chart it. And so we typically start with, the captain will start the first call of the day. So that meant Captain Keller was going to be charting it. So that would leave the other 3 of us to do the evaluation, assessment, and patient contact and skills.
So when you drove up to the scene, what did you see?
I remember us having to make a turn, and a couple of officers, I feel like, were already there, kind of navigate their cars, position right in front of the house. Saw at least one officer outside, saw a citizen, I feel like probably in the driveway somewhere with that officer. And then we just kind of proceeded out of the apparatus.
When you guys entered the house, you said that Captain Keller was going to be charting. So does that mean he wouldn't be touching the patient?
More than likely not, unless we needed additional help. I mean, he possibly could have been the first one in also. The way we were parked, that passenger side of the fire apparatus was the closest to the front door. He might have been in first, because I'm going to be on the other side. The 2 firefighters are getting out and going to the back compartment of the truck to get the equipment. So he may have walked up and possibly checked a pulse or something like that first, but he didn't. I don't feel like he did anything else other than that, if that.
Okay. You told us that as you're going there, you're receiving information about the patient, correct?
Correct.
In this case, had you received any information about whether or not he was receiving CPR?
Yes, I recall we had that info 2 ways. We had it with the PTI on our computer screen, which would be coming from our fire department dispatch. And then we have the ability to also listen on the radio to the PD channels. And so we can hear communication between the officers that are getting on scene and then the PD dispatch. And they also communicated that at some point in time.
When you entered the house, was there an officer already inside?
I believe there was an officer inside with Captain Keller.
And did you observe anyone giving the patient CPR?
No.
Can you tell us what you saw when you first entered the house?
You walked in the front door, just kind of a little entryway, and it kind of, I feel like it stepped down into maybe a formal kind of family room or something, but it was empty with no furniture anywhere in the room. That jumped out at first because it makes it easier. Like sometimes we're on scenes where the patient could be between a bed and a closet and you got to move them somewhere. So those thoughts are already kind of in your mind that you may have to move a patient just to have better access, and that was not a challenge here.
Did you notice any blood on the scene?
Not until I saw it on the patient's chest, but I didn't see it in the room. It wasn't something that I was going to need to avoid kneeling in to do CPR, avoid standing in, walking around. There's 4 of us. We probably had at least 4 boxes of equipment in there, so we didn't have to worry about where we placed this stuff in terms of blood.
Have you been to scenes where there's a large pool of blood around the patient that you're trying to not step in, kneel in, get in?
Yes.
You told us that you saw blood on the patient. Do you recall seeing any blood pooling in his chest, neck area?
I don't recall it pooling. He still had clothes on, a shirt on, and so it had been absorbing some blood.
I'll show you an admitted exhibit number 3. Do you recall ever seeing this pooling of blood around his neck there?
I don't recall that.
Okay. When you first saw the patient, what was your first impression?
That he's lying there unresponsive. You're not seeing any signs of life. You don't see somebody that's maybe moaning from an injury, moving, spontaneous breathing. What was your question again?
Just your first impressions of him as you are walking in and you're looking at him and assessing him.
Yeah, I guess that would be sufficient for my answer.
Did you think that he could be deceased?
It's definitely was a possibility. There was no, like I said, no obvious signs of life.
When you got into the room, did someone begin performing CPR on him?
So when I got to Charles' side, I would have performed a more detailed assessment, so to speak, rather than what I was seeing visually. So you're checking for responsiveness. You can move the patient. You're going to check for a pulse. Now you're closer to the chest. You're looking for breathing, seeing if you see the chest rise and fall. And we would call him unresponsive and pulseless and apneic. Apneic meaning not breathing. And then I would have started CPR.
So he wasn't breathing, he had no pulse, he wasn't moving, there were no signs of life.
Correct.
You told us that you had received information that someone had been doing CPR prior to your arrival, correct?
Correct.
Did that impact your view of the patient and your decision-making on what you should do next when you see this patient that is lifeless?
I mean, it makes you think that there's increased likelihood that of survival possibly, until we can, starting CPR is still appropriate to do, and then we can utilize some of our rest of our equipment. We can put an EKG machine on. We can actually see what the heart is doing. We can look at the rhythm. We wouldn't want to call a patient before taking some additional steps.
Okay. Who performed CPR?
I did.
And I'll put up Exhibit 4 here. Do you recognize who these people are?
Yes.
And who are they?
So standing to the left is Captain Keller. He's documenting. Standing to the right is firefighter Kaczynski. And then kneeling down back towards us is myself. And then kneeling down where you're pointing is firefighter Fife.
When you first began performing CPR, can you tell us what you felt?
So at first I didn't see a depression that would typically be left from somebody else previously doing compressions. So I thought that was odd considering the information we had en route. I started doing compressions. I felt that initial crack and crunch for probably the first couple of compressions that, again, you would typically feel when you're first starting compressions and if you're going hard enough and deep enough.
How long did you do CPR before you evaluated and utilized any other means to see if he might still be alive, savable?
If I had to estimate, I think I was probably doing CPR, chest compressions for at least a minute. You know, I mean, it probably took them at least 30 seconds to minutes to maybe get in to the house where I was after I entered. You know, they've got to set down that equipment and get some of that out. So I feel like at least a minute is a fair assessment.
What happened next? Is there some way to check his heart to see if there's
Right.
activity, or what do you do?
Yes, so I was doing chest compressions. I remember mentioning, because there's bullet holes going through them, so I remember mentioning to firefighter Kaczynski when she went to cut the shirt to not cut through a bullet hole. So she kind of went along the side. That's exposing the chest, so that way then we can put our heart monitor and perform an EKG on Charles to kind of see what his rhythm is doing. A person can typically still do chest compressions while they're doing that, and they can kind of work around you. But at some point in time, you're gonna have to stop. That way, you can just look at what the machine is showing you and telling you.
Was there any heart activity when you put on those EKG?
No, it was what we would call asystole, and it's just a flat line on the screen. There's no electrical activity of the heart.
At some point, you said you saw gunshot wounds. Do you recall how many you saw in the front there?
I saw 2.
Do you ever look to see if there's exit wounds?
We did roll him. I seem to recall and remember that we rolled him my way. I feel like the other 2 firefighters were then on that other side. Firefighter Kaczynski, who's the one that is standing up, I feel like she had a better view of what those look like since he was rolled my way. But I remember her commenting that there was 2 wounds on that backside of the patient.
So when you say he was rolled towards you, he's rolled towards this mirror over here?
Correct.
Okay. When you had stopped doing the CPR to roll him and he goes back, did you notice the depression in his chest now?
After I resume CPR, yes. It makes it kind of easier to find your landmark, so it's something that you typically look for.
So it was not there when you first started CPR,
Correct.
but it was after you had performed it.
Correct.
Do you wear gloves when you do this?
Yes.
Did you have blood on your gloves after you were doing CPR?
Yes.
You told us that when you first arrived, there was not much concern for having to navigate around blood that might be pooling around the victim, correct?
Correct.
After you had been doing CPR, was there more blood now around the patient?
There was definitely more on his chest, more was coming out of the wounds, specifically the one on the chest, from what I recall. The shirt isn't necessarily there to absorb it anymore. We've removed it. I can't recall necessarily on the ground, like where I might have been kneeling, but
When you first arrived, did you see any blood exiting the abdomen wound?
I did not.
As you were at this scene, you guys did the EKG. There was no heart activity. What do you do after that?
At some point in time, we just kind of have to look at patient viability, and we're just looking at the facts and how he's kind of presenting. And we're considering time that we've already been on scene, time, staging, responding, all of that. And ultimately, we do have offlines that we follow for different types of medical calls. And we felt that he fell into that category of not being viable and that we could call him on scene.
Now, you talked about you were not staged very far away, correct?
Correct.
Were you staged very long before you pulled up?
I felt like we might have been there for at least a couple of minutes.
Okay. When the patient was rolled, did anyone notice anything about, or did you notice anything about his skin that made you also question perhaps how long it had been since he had been shot?
Yes, it was pointed out because I didn't have a good view of that backside, the skin color, some modeling. There's changes in the skin color that are starting to occur from, blood hasn't been circulating, maybe been circulating as effectively as compared to when the heart is beating. You've got 2 injuries to the thoracic torso of the body, so to speak, the chest and abdomen. Those are going to hit internal organs and cause internal bleeding. And so that blood is starting to kind of what we would call dependent lividity, and it's just gravity. It's just kind of starting to go towards the backside, and the color changes are occurring.
So as the heart stops, the blood starts to just pool.
Yes, it's just stagnant, not being moved, and then those injuries inside, he's going to be bleeding internally.
And so some of that pooling causes color changes to the skin?
Yes.
That were observed.
Yes.
Was there anything about this victim, about Charles, that made you think that CPR may not have been performed on him prior to you arriving?
It was just simply the fact that what I saw on the chest when I first looked at it before I started CPR, and then what I felt during my first couple of chest compressions.
After you guys rolled him, saw the modeling and the lividity, was any further CPR performed?
From what I recall, yes.
Okay. When did you call this then?
Say that again?
When did you call it? When did you stop performing CPR?
So I don't remember with 100% certainty if I feel like, from what I recall, I'm performing chest compressions, the shirt's going to be cut off, we're exposing the patient, rolling, looking for more wounds and injuries, confirming what we see on the back, pointing that out to Captain Keller so he can document it, rolling back down, resuming CPR, monitors going on, stopping again to look at what the monitor's saying, resuming again to then have a brief discussion based on, okay, what we found, what are we thinking, where does he kind of fall?
Ultimately, did you guys terminate any treatment at about 8:48 a.m.?
If that's what's on the documentation, I would agree with that. I know we responded in the morning. It was our shift starts at 8 a.m. This was our first call. I don't remember if you said earlier what time we were dispatched or not, or just established the date.
If my paralegal could approach with the charting, would looking at the charting help you refresh your recollection as to when you guys ended
Sure.
any life-saving means?
So it looks like our dispatch is 8:37. Looks like we might have made patient contact at 8:45. See what else. I know the dispatch screen that will have like times of responding and things like that might have an appropriate time on it also that I'm not seeing right here though, but I'm still looking. So I see our first monitored rhythm as the asystole, like I said, that date time, I see a time of 8:48. So that might have been when we called him. I can see the obvious signs of death that Captain Keller used as the reason for discontinuing. ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation, no. So that would probably be the appropriate time.
After, well, let me say, so does it seem about right that you were with this patient for maybe 3 or so minutes? Actively working?
Actively working, I think probably close to 5 minutes.
Okay. And once he's called, what do you do at the scene? What do you do with all your equipment?
So once he's called, it's kind of a PD scene now. So we're gonna leave the body. We're gonna gather up what we can. Our equipment, sometimes there's some stuff we might need to leave behind that's necessary to leave on the patient. But
So like the EKG monitors that are stuck on him, you leave those on him?
yeah, we can disconnect those, exactly, and bring the cables with us.
Okay. When you told us when you arrived that you noticed a individual with a police officer near the driveway.
Correct.
Did you see that same person still outside when you exited?
Yes.
Did you notice any bleeding or obvious injuries to that person?
No.
Did you make an assumption as to who that was?
Yes, our PTI en route said brother or brother-in-law shot brother, so performing CPR, so you're kind of assuming it's that person.
Okay. In terms of his size, is he someone that, you talked about people may not be able to always be strong enough or able to perform CPR in a way to cause the depression or that crunching sound, for lack of better term. In your experience, what type of people are we talking about for that, where you wouldn't be surprised that you may not have seen that depression or the crunching?
It's typically going to be maybe an elderly population, somebody that's not as big, not as strong, that we might not be able to perform chest compressions hard enough and deep enough. Sometimes if a patient is in a bed, so mattress has give to it, compressions won't be as effective. You want to get him to the floor. Obviously, he was already on the floor, so that aids chest compressions.
Was there anything about this male that you saw when you observed him entering or exiting that made you believe that he had been injured?
No.
Based upon your training and experience and what you observed and did in this case, would you agree that the victim, Charles Vallow, was dead before you entered the house?
Yes.
Based upon your training and experience and what you observed and did in this case, would you agree that it was highly unlikely that anyone had performed CPR on Charles Vallow prior to you doing that?
Yes.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
All right, Cross?
So before we continue with Lori's line of question, that's bound to be not the best as far as her being knowledgeable about anything to do with this, and she's probably gonna ask some really stupid things because that seems to be par for the course for at least today. But it sounded like they wanted to make sure that Charles was good and dead before paramedics or before 911 was called, because they did not want him to survive. Period. In a self-defense situation, normally you don't hear where people are going, oh, it's almost over. I paused it and there was like 3 minutes left. So I'm gonna see what he says first.
You want me to go now, or it's 4:30? I didn't know if you wanted
How long do you anticipate your cross-examination?
to. It'd take a while, Your Honor.
All right, we'll break for the evening then. We'll need you back here tomorrow morning at 10:30.
10:30?
Yes. All right, we'll release the jury at this time for the evening. We'll resume tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Please remember the admonition.
Okay, so I guess I kind of paused prematurely there, but I'm going to move to the police interview that Lori did this same day that Charles was killed. But typically, when it seems to be the case, from my reading and different things that I have researched and just knowledge that I have on a very basic level, usually in a self-defense situation, when someone doesn't mean to, cause a fatal injury necessarily, 911 is called almost right away. In this case, he waited at least 30 minutes before calling 911. Meaning, to me, as a layperson who is not in law enforcement and not anything, to me would be led to believe that they wanted to make sure that Charles was dead. There was no him coming back from this. There was no shooting him in the heart and then, someone happened to be close enough by to know how to do CPR and save him. I mean, he was shot in the heart, so chances are he wouldn't have been able to be easily saved anyway. But as just an extra measure, shot him, he was down. The threat had been neutralized at that point because he's just grabbing at himself because he's bleeding. And for good measure, he shot again and then walk away, go put the gun in the back room. That might have been when he staged the scene, like he would have been hit with a ball bat. It just doesn't sound like so far there was an intention to render aid. So that's fun. Hopefully there's no commercial in this. There probably will be because, I say something and if I don't say something, there won't be. And if I do say something, there will be. Or whatever.
Thank you.
Ooh, that's a little loud.
It's using the other one, so you'll be, Brendan's gonna monitor for him.
Okay, so just run out this way.
Okay.
If there's anything, but
Perfect. Okay.
Keep in mind, real quick, this is at 9:42 a.m. So this is like an hour later after some of those officers left the scene and Lori and Tylee were brought here. So this is the demeanor that you're going to see, or that we are going to see together, of how Lori acted an hour later.
they don't care.
Well,
so
and I think
horrible.
with high school, it's like, they're just pumping
But
kids
when she
through.
was in elementary and junior high, all the teachers worked with her. They were nice about it. But by high school, there's so many kids that just don't care. And I was like, just take it. You're so smart. Let's just take it, see if you pass it. She passed it. Like,
And got a really good score.
yeah, she passed it with like college ready in every category the first time.
Well, and now she can do what she wants, so
Exactly.
she's better off that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know Laura's your first name, right? L-A-U-R-A?
L-O-R-I.
Okay. And then what's your last name?
Vallow. V-A-L-L-O-W.
And your date of birth? And your phone number? And you live at the house, right? Okay.
The house
Okay,
with no
I know it
furniture.
sounds silly, but it's probably the easiest way to start, is just to tell me what happened. And then, so you can start what makes the most sense to you, and we'll just work our way through, and I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions just to kind of clarify.
Sure.
So I know you talked to the initial patrol officer,
And he just got information. He
Oh,
didn't
okay.
say anything.
So yeah, if you can just kind of tell me kind of what happened. It sounds like some of this may have started last night or something along those lines. So
Right.
start where you think it makes the most sense.
Okay, so,
I told you, it's a crazy question.
Well, so we moved into this house 3 weeks ago because he offered to get me a house here where all my family is. We
Okay.
were in Houston. And, so he's like, we had decided to separate or whatever. So he's like, well, I'll pay for a house for you and for JJ and whatever, because he's all about JJ. He's never about Tylee, but he's all about JJ. Because we adopted him together. He's
Okay.
his great nephew. We adopted him as a
Okay.
baby. And so we adopted him as a baby, and so we've been raising him together. And he travels all the time for business, so he's used to just going back and forth. So he's always gone like Monday through Friday. So he came when we first moved in and brought me stuff from Houston, like a U-Haul, and then he hasn't been back. But it's all these threats on my phone all the time, you know, like whatever, all these things. And then he told me
What kind of threats?
just you'd have to read them to see, but he's always mad at me, right?
Okay.
And he doesn't want a divorce, but I don't like him and don't want to deal with him, so that's just how it is. Like, so we married for 14 years, we dealt with it for 14 years, of him being horrible to her. Like, he gets in huge fights with her, a lot of things. But anyway, so he said, I'm coming Wednesday night, all of a sudden. I want to see JJ. And I told him, I said, I will never keep JJ from you. You can come see whenever you want to. Come take him to school, whatever. Like, I'm not going to do that.
So when you initially moved, he had said he was going to buy you a house. So you moved here with your...
Yeah, he was going to rent us a house.
And so you
'Cause
moved...
all my family lives here. So
Right.
we lived here for a long time.
Okay,
And then he moved us to Houston.
okay.
And we were there with my son. He was out of school. He didn't have any of his, like, services, his DDD, his anything. He, like, ripped him out of school and said, we're moving.
Okay.
And I didn't go with him at first. And he took him. And I let him take him. And I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, 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 you know.
I mean, I'm going to pause for a second there. She is crazy. You know, and of course she can paint this picture of the kind of relationship that, I mean, I'm sure he probably did not have a good relationship with Tylee. But it's hard when you have a blended family, but you have, I mean, having teenagers is hard anyway. And if you don't know how to handle combative situations, like some people are non-confrontational. And if there's an issue that arises and they don't feel like really dealing with hostility, they will become, withdrawn, or they'll back up and they'll just let things go because it's a more passive approach. They just don't want it to escalate into something bigger. And then you have people who are combative and will be relentless and always have to have the last word. When you get two people who continuously have to have the last word, that makes it even harder because when does an argument stop? It just continues to escalate. I don't know about Tylee because I don't know Tylee. She could have been an introverted person, or she could have been, don't F with me and I won't F with you. And she could have been the type of person to stand her ground and be like, I'm not letting this go. And if he wasn't letting it go, there's just going to be a continued escalation and they probably wouldn't like each other very much. And I am absolutely sure it was totally helpful having Lori in the middle, because I cannot imagine that she was ever very helpful when it came to these issues. Because, you know, like we were told in opening arguments, that Charles comes to the house and Lori takes his phone from him. You're separated. You're living in two different households. Well, he was in a hotel, I guess. You're not living together. You hadn't been living together. You said you didn't want to get back to him. She just said it now, that she was done with him. It's been 14 years of this. His phone is his property, and she had zero right to take it from him. Period. If she wouldn't have taken his phone, he would have taken JJ, put him in the vehicle, and taken him to school. Instead, JJ's in the vehicle. He wants his phone back. I mean, I'd be the same way. You crazy bitch. Give me my phone back. I mean, I've heard what Colby has had to say about his mother and her manipulation tactics, and how Lori's always the victim. Poor Lori. You know, she doesn't do anything wrong. She's just the righteous one. She's the holy one, and everybody else is bad and full of demons or whatever.
The story. And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him and let him see what I've been doing for the past 7 years, because men need to do that. You know, I have 5 kids, I have grown kids, I have grandkids. Like, okay, you're going to threaten me that you're not going to let me see my child without supervised visitation? Okay, do it for 30 days and see how long it lasts. You're begging me to come pick him up. Yeah. Which he did. It's just like, come back and whatever. So I moved in with them to Houston for the family, you know, and Tylee went with me. We drove to Houston from here and left all our family and all his support, all my son's support, like his cousins, everything. And we were there, and I enrolled him in school there. I tried to start all his services, and it takes forever. Yeah. You know, it takes so long to get that done.
There's no easy transferring.
There's
anything.
no easy transferring.
You start from the beginning.
It's a totally new thing. Yeah. And he didn't do any of it in those 30 days. So he just had gone without services, without even applying. And I'm like, do you even realize? Because he didn't ever do it in the first place. I did it. Long story. I'll keep it short. He hasn't been here in a couple weeks since we moved in. He came. He was very nasty when he was there, but he travels for business. So he went back to the Houston house, and he's like, I'm coming on Wednesday night, and I'm going to come pick up JJ and take him to school Thursday, pick him up Thursday, take him Friday, whatever. And I said, Casey wanted to come to the house, and I said, you can't come stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee. She's a minor. She has to live here. Yeah. So because he gets in huge fights up there. Okay. And she hates him. And so I'm like, you can't stay at the house, so I will book you a hotel, because he stays in hotels all the time because he travels for business, and the business pays for it, right? So I said, I will book you a hotel nearby. What does he do? He works with teachers in their retirement plans, but he goes to them at their school. He mostly works in California, no matter where we live. And we lived in Hawaii, he'd work in California, he'd work in Texas, he has like books of business in different areas. And so he just goes wherever. It kind of just gives him freedom that he doesn't have to stay home every day and take care of special needs child. It's like an excuse, right? So I've done that myself for the last 7 years anyway. And I was a single mom before I married him with my 2 kids. Yeah. And he had 2 kids. We got married, tried to make a family. You know how it goes. Anyway. So he said he was coming last night. I said, well, you can't stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee. And I'll get you a hotel and you can come play with JJ. But he goes to school all day. Yeah. I got him back into his school. His services, I met with the DDD yesterday, and they finally are getting his services back, but we're paying $125 a day to have him back at school because he's so out of his routine. He's been a nightmare on the floor, kicking stuff, hitting stuff, walls, like, he just ripped him out of his life. Yeah. So, anyway, just how he is, because he only thinks about himself. So, he says, come and get JJ, and JJ's like, I don't want Dad, because he knows
the irony
so
of that statement.
Out, right? So, I didn't tell him he was even coming, like Dad's going to come take you to school or anything. So he didn't bother me last night, which I was surprised. I was expecting kind of an ambush for him to kind of like come over or be just mean and say, it's my house, I'm on the lease, I'm going to stay here kind of thing. Because that's kind of his macho attitude. And so he came this morning. I was getting JJ ready.
So
for
he got in last night, but he wasn't at the house last night.
Yeah, I didn't hear from him, except for he texted me and said, I'll be there at 7:30 to pick up JJ.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that was good, 'cause I didn't hear from him. And then he came over in the morning and he's like banging on the door. I'm like, oh great, here we go, you know. And I was just gonna be nice. I was just gonna be nice as possible. And I had JJ stuff all ready for school. And so.
Do you remember about what time he got there?
So Tylee is asleep and her brother is asleep. And Charles supposedly comes and does this policeman's knock, banging on the door. And that didn't wake anybody up. If he was genuinely banging on the door. And see, this is the problem. Lori can spin whatever narrative that she wants because Charles isn't here. He's not here to tell his side of the story of what happened. And she's talking to this law enforcement officer as if it's a therapist or a buddy or someone that she's in a even casual setting with. But she's spinning the narrative, and Colby said she does this a lot.
He said he'd be there at 7:30, but it was more like 7:40-ish or 7:35, I don't know.
Okay.
But I remember looking at the clock, and he wasn't there at 7:30, and he's usually Mr. On
Punctual.
time. Yes. So I was like, okay. And then JJ was like, oh, Dad. And then he was like, Mommy, and like ran to me and was like holding me. He's like, you're not taking me to school. And I was like, it's okay, Daddy can just drive you to school. It's not a big deal. You know, just trying to make it whatever.
Calm.
Yeah, calm. And then he was just being real smirky and real like jerky, you know, to me. And I was like ignoring him, whatever. And so he was like,
And your brother lives there with you?
no,
Okay.
he had stayed with me last night because I was worried he was going to come over and
Okay.
cause trouble with me.
Okay.
And just wanted someone else there, like my brother there, because I trust my brother. And it's been a long story. Like, I had to go live at my brother's when he took JJ, and, you know, he's just been difficult. So, anyway. So I got JJ stuff ready. And he was like, well, and he's like this about timing. He's like, I'm leaving in 20 minutes because it's like 15 minutes to the school and like you can't get there early. They don't open the gates until 8:20 or something like that. And I said, well, why don't you just go now? I don't want him in the house. I'm like, why don't you just go now and take him to Burger King because that's what he likes for breakfast. And he's very particular about food. Like, he wanted chicken fries for breakfast and a Sprite. Like, and I just get what he wants because if you don't get what he wants, then it's like on the floor screaming, dragging him into school. Like, and he's big and he's heavy and it's hard for me to handle. But anyway, so I said, just go. And so he said, okay. So I gave him a backpack. He got in the car. This is his MO, right? He always leaves something in the house and comes back. He never leaves the first time. I always expect my husband to come back into the house, right? So I guess he had left his phone on the counter.
So he initially left with the backpack and with JJ?
And so he put them in the car, in the driveway, and then he came back in, right? So I kissed JJ goodbye. He came back in, and his phone was on the counter, and I had his phone. And he was like, give me my phone. And I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, 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 you know, whatever.
Okay, you're separated. That's none of your business. And this is just, even for married couples, I'm torn on this. Like, yes, there should be a certain level of trust, but you shouldn't be demanding to see your significant other's phone information. If they willingly let you have it because that's your relationship and they don't care, you know, the passwords, you could see all their stuff. They could see all of your stuff if they wanted to. That is a basic level of trust and is great. But you also shouldn't be, if you don't have that level of trust with each other, maybe you should be having that conversation about your relationship if there's that kind of issue. But their phone is their privacy. And if they don't want you to have that information, that's their right, especially when you're not together. She said that she doesn't want to be with him. She's tired of dealing with his crap. It's been 14 years, blah, 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 blah. He's the one who wants to reconcile. She's not interested. Then what the heck does she care what's in his phone? Then what the hell does she care who he's talking to? He could be talking to a brothel full of women for all I would care if I were her and were done. Not one time in my former marriage was I like saying anything to my former, I want to see your phone. I want to see who you're talking to, because at that point I legitimately did not care. She had zero business taking his phone and demanding, and see, right there, she just lied, which big shock. But she's claiming that she just wanted him in and out. She wanted him to leave. And he always comes in because he always forgets something. And I'm sure that's how it went down, Lori. But if she truly just wanted him out of there and didn't want him to be around, she would have just like, take your phone, go, get out of here. Instead, she's delaying his leaving by starting an argument. Well, I want to see who you're talking to. Well, it's none of your business.
Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something against me. Like, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what did you come here for? You know, he's been talking to my other brother, and my brother came into town at the same time last night, and I haven't talked to my brother in a while, my other brother, and I was like, and so he was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house, and I'm like, why are you texting Adam? Like, do you even talk to him? Like, my other brother. And, you know, he's been telling me all these texts, like, you're going down, blah, 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 blah. He's blaming me for our marriage breaking up and my niece getting divorced and my friend getting divorced. He said, I'm a destroyer of families because I want everybody to get divorced. I'm like, what would my motivation be for people getting divorced? So I could babysit the kids more? Like, why would I have any control over what people do?
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
you are a destroyer of
very
lives, so
odd.
there's
But
that.
Anyway, he goes nuts. He's gone nuts on us a lot of times. Tylee and I have had to leave with JJ over the years probably 5 times and just stay in a hotel for 2 days because he goes nuts. Like, you don't know what's going to set him off. Like, whatever. And she's mad at me for always, like, going back. But we had JJ and he's special needs, and it's really hard. Like, it's even hard to take care of it by yourself.
So when you say he goes nuts, that can mean a lot of different things.
Right.
So goes nuts like yelling and screaming.
Yeah,
goes
yelling and
nuts
screaming,
like breaking
like,
things.
yes.
Goes nuts like physical violence.
He's never really, besides, like, grabbing us and pushing us, but not, like, punching us or something. But with Tylee, he has gotten physical
Okay.
before. And with my grown son.
Like physical how?
Like, got into a physical fist fight with my son when he was 16.
Okay.
And he came after Tylee 2 times in Hawaii.
Okay.
And, like, went like he was going to hit her, but then I got in between them. Right.
How old was she when that happened?
Probably 13 and 14.
Okay. So this morning he comes back in and...
He comes back in, I wouldn't give him his phone. He was screaming at me to give him his phone. He was very worried about whatever was on his text that he did not want me to see. And so I was just holding it there, and he was screaming at me. And I was kind of walking around the house with it so he couldn't get it. He's like...
Again, I'm sorry I keep pausing, but it's none of her business. Even if he's talking to her brother, and you know what? I'm not saying that Charles was a saint, because I don't know this guy. He could have been a massive dickhead for all I know. But the point is, she's walking around the house with his phone, antagonizing him. And if he's someone who gets physical when he's pissed off, why is she antagonizing him then? Give him his phone, get him the hell out of your house. That's all you have to do, Lori. Give him his property so he can leave. Instead, you're treating him like a horse and you're dangling a carrot. Come get it. Or she might as well, you know, have a giant red flag waving it at a bull. It's the same kind of principle. Come and get it. Like, is she 12 years old? It's his property. Give it back to him so he leaves. Instead, it sounds like she's really just setting the stage to get him so riled up. It's justifiable for her brother to come out, play the hero, shoot him 2 times, let him lay there on the floor for 30 minutes before he calls paramedics, or 40 or 45 minutes, or however much time passed between. But here's Lori just admitting that she's just antagonizing the guy.
Reaching for it and stuff like that. And so Tylee came out of her room upset, and she had a bat, and she told him to leave her mother alone, like,
Uh-huh.
right? So she was really whatever, and he's screaming at her, "Don't you hit me with that bat," and blah, 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 blah. And then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there in bed, and so he came out into the main room, and I guess whatever,
What's your brother's name?
Alex.
Alex, okay.
And then he just started, he was screaming and he was super upset and whatever, and he's yelling at Tylee, "Don't you hit me with that bat," and blah, blah, blah. And so Tylee, I guess, I don't know if she swung at him or what, but he like grabbed the bat from Tylee and then went to like hit Tylee with the bat. It was, and I was right there, they were right there, and my brother grabbed him from behind, like just to stop him from hitting Tylee.
You go like this, like he grabbed him, like.
Yeah, from behind, like just kind of to pull him back. And then they got into the thing, and he's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever. And then, I mean, it was all
And he
quickly.
And he hit your brother with the bat while they were grappling and stuff.
Yeah, yes, he was hitting him with the bat, like.
I want to know how that happens. So you're tussling around on the ground. Someone's got a bat in their hand, and they're just like haphazardly hitting you with it. So several things are going to happen, likely. A, you're not going to just have this one little weird wound in the back of your head that's barely noticeable. Like, he's going to have redness and bruising already forming by the time that police get there. If this scenario is true, how it exactly went down, just like this. They're just grappling on the ground with this bat that Tylee had, which she might have. She might have been the one with the bat. But is this scenario exactly how it went down? I don't know. I haven't listened to Tylee's rendition. I don't know how long it was before she ran out of the house to JJ. But it's just, it just seems so bizarre. Meanwhile, Alex's sunglasses are still on his head. So, this was all supposed to have happened. And again, even if she hated the guy, she is not the least bit upset here. She's laughing. She's almost jovial at points, which is strange. And it's just, I don't know.
Swinging the bat, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around, knowing JJ was in the car, right? And so then he got up and he had the bat like this towards me, and I was going around the other side to try to just get out of his range where he couldn't hit me. And then I had told Tylee, because she was on the ground, because after he took the bat from her, she fell back. And so I told her, I was like, go get in the car with JJ. Like, I don't want JJ coming in to the house, and I wanted her out of the way. I wanted the kids out of the way of whatever this fight was going to be. And then,
do you remember what your husband or your brother were saying or yelling during all of this? If they were at all?
Just kind of, get off me, ow, or whatever. They were like, don't talk to my niece that way, whatever. Like, it was, I don't remember specifics, but they were kind of both, they were kind of in the heat of it. I don't think there was many words that I remember.
So Tylee goes outside.
Yeah, she was outside.
And then what happened?
Then they got up from that, and my brother had stepped back, I guess, and then Charles was coming with me at the back, yelling at me to give him his phone still, because I had it in my hand. It was all really quickly. And then when I went around kind of in the circle, then my brother was there.
When you said when you were going around and he was coming at you with the bat, how was he holding the bat?
Just like that, like backwards, almost in one arm.
Like he was swinging it backwards? He would have done like
he would have swung it backwards at me, not frontwards.
Okay, yeah.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea for Tylee to get out of that.
Probably not the.
Oh yes, this is just such a funny conversation. It's a really good thing that Tylee got. And I know, people yell at me probably if they ever watch this. They're like, well, you don't know what you're gonna be like. It's all nerves. Yeah, but this is Lori Vallow. We've seen enough of her to know that, half of what's coming out of her mouth isn't true. She likes to spin tall tales and the manipulation game that she plays. So it's pretty safe to say that she's full of it in this moment. And this is like, she loves attention. She eats it up. You can see it in her most recent interview she did. And then there was a phone conversation between her and Colby last fall that was disgusting, her behavior. And the things that she said to him was horrifying. But any ounce of attention that Lori can get, she eats it up. She loves it so much. So this, right now, she's in her element. Because she knows she's being recorded. Everybody does when they go into these rooms. They know they're being recorded. So she's just eating this up. To sit there and laugh about her daughter being afraid of her husband, that's not funny, lady. It's not funny. It's not something to joke about. It's not something to to snark at. It's terrifying for a child to be afraid of somebody who's combative and physical. And okay, so if he was a former baseball player, then he's strong, right? So yeah, that sounds like the kind of person you really want to intentionally piss off and then laugh about it. You crazy coot.
He played semi-pro when he was young. But, yeah, and then I was kind of turned around, and we were all right there in that room, except for the kids had been outside by that time, and I heard the gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you heard the shot?
mm-hmm.
Did you actually see the shot, or did you just hear it?
I had gone around to the kitchen to get away from him, and so back around. So I don't know if you went in the house.
I didn't, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I didn't see the shot. I heard it, and then I came back around and I saw that he was on the ground.
Okay.
And was freaking out.
Yeah.
And
So where did Alex get the gun from then? Because she said he was in bed. Tylee was in bed. Tylee comes out with the bat. Alex doesn't have a shirt on. He's pulling on his jeans because he had been sleeping too. So where did he magically get this gun from then? Was it like stored in his underwear? In the pocket of his jeans that he's haphazardly putting on? Because that's safe. I mean, I feel like that's how you accidentally shoot yourself. So I'm confused where this gun magically came from. If they're grappling on the ground with a bat, yelling at each other, this sounds weird. Like, did he run into the room, grab the gun, come out, and like, she conveniently supposedly wasn't in the room, but knowing her, she probably was. Yeah, I don't know where the gun came from. Maybe she'll tell us.
I was just freaking out, and it just went into mom mode. I'm like, I've got to go to get JJ to school. I've got to get to the kids. I just felt like I got to get to the kids. And so I just went outside and to see if they were in there okay. I didn't want them coming back in the house when all that was going on. And got JJ in the car, and he was trying to come in, and Tylee was like looking at me with like the crazy eyes, like what just happened. And I told her to get in the car and we're going to take JJ to school. And I just left.
When you came back in and you saw him on the ground, where was your brother? Did you see him where he was at?
Yeah, he was right in front of him.
Okay.
Like, it all happened very quickly. That
Right.
was, I mean, I feel like I was there because I was right there, and like a second later. Like,
Okay.
I just went around the kitchen to get away from him.
Did your brother say anything to you at all? Do you remember?
No, we were both just in shock.
Okay.
Like, it was just I didn't say anything. I went out with the kids just to check on them first, and I was going to come back in maybe, but I didn't. I was like, I just have to get him to school.
Okay.
And call the police, come back, whatever.
Did anybody say did you or your brother say anything at some point about calling the police or calling 911? Do you remember?
Yeah, he called me.
Okay.
And he said, are you taking JJ to school? And I said, yeah, we need to call the police. And he said, okay.
Okay. So he called you when you didn't come back inside, basically?
Right.
Okay.
Because I was like in the car for a minute, and then I was like, what do I do? And I didn't want JJ to go inside, and I didn't know what to do, and Tylee was freaking out. I was trying to get them away from the scene.
Understandable. And you may not know this, so, because I know you heard the shot, do you know at what point your brother had the gun? Do you know if he had it when they got in their first fight, or did he have to go get it, or do you know that at all?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
And do you remember if you ever heard your brother?
I didn't see him ever leave the room.
Okay.
So it was so fast. All that was so fast. Like him on the ground, rolling around, and I'm screaming. And
this probably happened in a couple seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it was like super fast.
And I don't know if you know this or not, does your brother normally carry a gun? Like, I carry a gun everywhere I go.
Right. Like, I know he's a gun person. Like, he has guns and things. And
Okay.
He's good with guns. And
Did you know that he had one with him
no.
when he came over?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Because he's very, very professional with guns.
Proficient, professional. Responsible's usually a good
Right.
word.
Responsible with guns.
And then, do you remember if at any time, so you were trying to get away from him,
Right.
and you heard the shot. Prior to the shot, do you remember at any point hearing your husband or your brother saying anything to either of them?
No.
So my second very ridiculous question is there anything else that I didn't ask about or anything that we didn't cover that you think is important? I always ask that just because I wasn't there, and so we're going through something that happened a super small amount of time.
Yes. Can I
So,
sip?
yeah, go for it.
Just thinking. Just that. He was just so angry, like super scary.
Did you
know how you take your phone away from like a 16-year-old and they freak out? Like their world disintegrates. Like I've taken my.
I mean, I'm torn on this because I get what she's saying, like taking a phone or something away from a teenager and they freak out. But at the same time, what gave her the right to do that? So in my comments, just drop your thoughts. What do you think? Did she have the right? Put to the side that it's Lori Vallow for a second. Two people are separated. They're living in different places. They haven't been together. They're talking about divorce. Does the one person have the right to take the other person's phone away and demand to see what's in it? Do they have that right? I want to know what your thoughts are. Because you know mine. I just stated them. But I want to know. If you are separated from someone, or even if you're not, if you're in a relationship with someone, and they take your phone away and they start demanding to know what's inside it, who you're talking to, is that going to be upsetting to you? Are you going to get upset because, is it their right to do that? But specifically, is it a person's right to take their separated partner property? Was that her right?
Phone away from a 16-year-old boy before, and he's like wanted to kill himself because they kidnapped him. That's how it was. It was like, is something on his phone that he does not want me to see, that he was like freaking out. Like, to the point where I thought he would hit me in the back of the head to get the phone.
Okay. So you thought, and not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you thought it was possible that he was going to hurt you.
Absolutely, he was gonna hurt me and Tylee.
Okay.
Not JJ, he would never hurt JJ.
Okay.
And he hurt my brother. Like,
Yeah.
he was going, like, ballistic about, it was bad.
Okay. I'm gonna go talk to her real quick.
Okay.
And then if, obviously, we'll be here for a little bit, hopefully not too much longer. But if you think of anything or there's anything that kind of pops in your head or something else that we didn't cover, obviously. So I'm gonna go talk to her for just a little bit, and then I'll kind of come back and check with you. And then we'll kind of go from there. So I know my partner's talking to your brother over in one of the other interview rooms. So we're going to just try to get, as much done as we can and go from there.
Okay.
Okay? And then, is there anybody that you need to call or anything, or you want to wait a little bit?
I don't know what I would say.
No. And wait a little bit, we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know what I would say.
And if you want to, you can think about it. So we do have victim services that work within the police department. They're right over here. They're not cops, they're civilians. And they do, Jessica, who was out there with the fire department, so they're kind of our crisis response. They come right away. So our victim services that work in the department are kind of more long-term type support systems. So they're just a really good resource because they do a lot of stuff with our families and things like that, and can help with support services and questions you might have.
She's been through so much.
So it might be a good
I
idea.
just can't stand for her to have to go through all this.
Yeah, it might be a good idea maybe before I take you guys back today that I get one of them to come in and maybe sit and talk with you guys and see. And it's not something there's a bunch of stuff they can offer, but it's good to have a contact and like a name and a face and a phone number.
That'd be good.
That way maybe a couple days from now, a week from now, or if there's something going on or you think you need help with something, it may not be something that's necessarily up like me and my partner's alley, but it very much may be up theirs. So I'd like for you to meet one of them before we leave. That way, hopefully if there's something that they can help you and your daughter with, they can, or even JJ or whatever else.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I hadn't even thought about him.
Yeah. So.
I mean, he's used to him not being there, but he wouldn't understand even if you told him.
Right.
Like, that somebody passed away, he doesn't understand
What that means. Well, I mean, it's hard at 7 to understand that anyways.
Anyway, that's true, but with him he just doesn't, which is probably better because he doesn't comprehend things, but I don't know, that's a lot to think about.
Yeah. So let me go find one of them, and then we'll make sure that you guys get to meet with them before you leave, because that might be something very helpful for you guys. And I'm going to go speak with your daughter for just a little bit, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
Okay? And if you need anything, let me know, okay? Okay.
Okay, so I just looked ahead. There is probably a half an hour of staring at Lori sitting in a room, which I feel like this is all for whatever purpose, because, she's pretending to be upset. I don't even know. She's a sociopath. I did find Tylee's interview. So we are going to watch that together because I have never seen that interview. But this is not, as far as I know, unless the prosecution decides to use it, which I doubt it. Lori was not allowed to. It was kind of something I joked with another person about, that she said that it's not right that she can't use Tylee's version of events from that day because she's not available as a witness. And it's not really laughable because Tylee is dead and that's terrible. She was a child. But Lori has a whole lot of audacity saying that, because the whole reason Tylee isn't here is because she was murdered. And she was murdered at the hands of Lori, which I can say that because she has been found guilty and is serving a prison sentence in life for the deaths of Tylee and JJ. Whether she personally did it or she orchestrated for it to happen, I probably at some point will cover what she says to Colby, but I might actually put his YouTube page in my comments because he has a lot of insight to his mother and deserves that platform to speak his own mind about her. But I can say that she has been found guilty of the reason for Tylee and JJ not being here anymore, and Tylee being unavailable as a witness was at her hands. And remember, the people who were there that day, Charles, JJ, Tylee, Alex, they're all dead. The only person surviving is Lori. So I'm going to skip ahead. We come back right around here. No one wants to stare at her for half an hour. At least I don't.
So this is Denise.
Hi, sorry. That's funny. That's funny. I'm so
So she's gonna take you over to like a conference room so you guys can sit and talk and stuff. And then you can just, once you guys talk and kind of, you can decide if you're comfortable with Tylee coming in or whatever.
Sure.
And then we'll
I just don't want her to be left alone in
Yeah,
by herself.
yeah.
She's freaking out. Like,
so we keep kind of popping in and checking on her and
I
stuff.
just don't
So
want her to be alone too long.
Yeah.
We'll be as brief or as long as you want, okay? I'm here to try to, you got lots of choices when you talk, so we'll just get started and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I do not want to see the full body cam from Gene Hackman's death. That's terrible. Alright, so I need this. If there is a commercial, I apologize. I do not have premium on here yet. So here's Tylee.
Hi. So you have to spell your name because we're all taking guesses on how to spell it. We're not sure.
Tylee.
Okay, I was right. And what's your last name?
Ryan, Ryan.
And your birthday? And then, do you have a phone?
Yeah.
What's your phone number? Okay. So I know this is going to kind of sound like kind of a silly question because it's super broad. But can you basically tell me what happened today? And you can start at whatever place makes sense for you to kind of start and explain. I'll probably kind of ask you questions as we go a little bit.
Okay. So I woke up probably around like 7:50, I want to say, because I heard yelling from like right outside my door. I don't even know where I heard, but I immediately like jumped up, and I have a baseball bat because when I was living at my uncle's by myself, I just wanted something to like feel safer, and I'm not old enough to get like pepper spray or anything, so I was like, okay, I'll get a baseball bat. So I have that.
So your bedroom, you said that right outside your bedroom door, and I didn't go in the house, so I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. So what is your bedroom door open to?
My bedroom door open, so the room that my uncle was staying in, the room that's kind of like the guest room, if my room's right here, that's right there.
Okay.
And then my little brother's room, and then kitchen's kind of back here, so it's like a little hallway, and then right here is kind of where everything happened.
Okay.
Like the big, you walk in and...
Like big great room, kind of living room?
Yeah, right now it just has mirrors up because my mom wanted a dance room.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Kind of unconventional, but...
Hey, whatever makes you happy. It's your guys' house, so...
Right.
My mom wanted a dance room.
Yeah, I immediately just jumped
Sweet
up
Jesus.
and I grabbed my baseball bat and I opened the door, and it was my stepdad, outside the doorway, and then my uncle kind of in the doorway, and then I could hear my mom behind him, and he was just screaming at both of them, like, I don't even know what he was saying, because honestly I was just too, like,
like wired, I guess. So I told him to take a few steps back. I was like, you're too close, you need to step back. And he was like, don't tell me what to do. And I just kind of just stood there, and then my uncle kind of moved out of the way, and then my mom kind of went past him and into like the big room.
Okay.
Where everything happened, and so I walked with them, and then
So they were more in the hallway.
yeah, they were at like the end of the hallway,
Okay.
basically, and so my mom walked all the way around, and he kind of followed them, and I just kind of stood. My uncle was like right here, and then my stepdad right here, and then me and my mom were kind of right here. And I didn't do anything with the baseball bat, I kind of just held it there, and he was getting really close to my mom, so I kind of stuck it out like between them, and they were both just yelling, and he was like, if you hit me with that baseball bat, you're gonna go to jail. And I just kind of stood there with the baseball bat, and I didn't really say anything.
When you said they were yelling, who was yelling?
It was mostly my stepdad.
Okay.
Well, he was really the only one like yelling. My mom was kind of like responding, but I honestly couldn't tell you what they were saying. It was kind of just like all jumbled up in my head. And so I just kind of stuck the baseball bat out there, and then he just grabbed it and tried to take it. So I held on to the end, and then eventually I fell, and he kind of took it into his hands like he was going to do something with it. And that's when...
So when you fell, he ended up with the bat?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm pausing her for a second. I really hate to interrupt Tylee, this poor girl. I feel really bad for her, but I have two observations, if you will. Lori is saying this happened very fast, and maybe it did. But when Tylee comes out with a bat, it sounds like Alex was already out there. And she said most of the yelling was coming from my dad. And she doesn't really know what or stepdad, but she doesn't really know what her mom was doing. Why do I have it in my mind that Lori was probably laughing like a hyena and provoking him and being an ass? Like, my stepdad is doing all the yelling. I don't really know what my mom was doing, ish, is kind of what she says. Because, she was probably freaking out and stressed out, and she's not serving the room, other than she sees the one person who shouldn't be there who's going crazy, and someone she doesn't really care for anyway. But it sounds like Alex was already out there when Tylee came out, which doesn't really correspond with them coming out of the room at the same time. So that's interesting.
And so I fell to the ground, and then my uncle kind of like, I saw him take a step back, so my uncle, I think, grabbed him and kind of took him back so he couldn't like do anything.
You saw your stepdad like take a step back?
Take a step back, because he was really close to begin with, and then and so my mom said to go with JJ, and so I ran out the door, and then I kind of just stood there with my little brother. He was in the front seat of the car, and so I just kind of opened the door and just stood there, and like he was trying to get out, and I was like, no, we have to stay in. And I was like, oh, like I told him, like, do you want to go in the Jeep? And then he was like, no, and then I realized that my car was blocked in, so I couldn't anyways. I was like, okay, like, just stay here. And then eventually my mom came out, and then we left from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, like, because I heard a noise, which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the baseball bat was in there, it sounded like someone, like, took it and hit it really hard against the floor.
Okay.
And so I was kind of like, Al's okay, right? Because that's my uncle. So I just wanted to make sure that, like, my stepdad didn't do anything to my uncle and stuff. And so she was like, no, like, Al's fine. Like, we're just going to take JJ to school. And I was like, okay. So I just got in the car, and then we went to Burger King because my little brother wanted breakfast, which was chicken fries for some reason.
Okay. I do dinner for breakfast all the time.
Breakfast for dinner and dinner for breakfast.
So to kind of back up a little bit, so you had talked about your stepdad, when you put the bat out, your stepdad was coming towards your mom. Can you describe to me a little bit better kind of what was going on there? Like, is there a reason you put the bat up?
Yeah, he was walking towards my mom, and I just didn't want him to do anything, so I kind of just stuck out the bat. Like, my mom was right beside me, and he was right there, so it wasn't, like, between them.
Okay.
It was kind of just, like, I just stuck it out to be, like, keep your distance, kind of.
When you say you didn't want him to do anything, what did you think he was going to do?
Hit her.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, for the most part, been pretty, like, mundane, but there have been a few, like, violent times with him when I was really scared that he was going to hit me or hit my mom, like, just because everything was kind of crazy. Me and him have always kind of not gotten along, like, just since I was little. And so there have been a few times that we've gotten in fights and stuff like that, and so, so I'm just kind of always scared of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so that happened, and he grabbed the bat from you. So kind of tell me that again real quick.
So I kind of stuck it out, and this is when he was like, if you hit me with that baseball bat, you're going to jail, and I didn't say anything, because I'm like, okay. And so I'm holding it by, like, the end of the bat, like, the place where you hold it, and so he kind of took it, and I kind of, like, lunged forward and kind of lost, like, my footing. And so my mom was like, just let go, and so, I kind of, like, slipped and I fell, kind of on.
Okay, I really hate that I am pausing and interrupting this sweet girl again. But this to me doesn't seem like the same scenario of what Lori just painted. Because that sounds like a reasonable thing. She brings this bat out because it's something that she felt she needed for protection. I mean, all power to her because, same, I guess. But it sounds like he didn't aggressively knock her down. He pulled the bat from her, and that was the causation. Him jerking that bat away is what made her lose her balance. He didn't strike her with it or move to strike her with it, and he made her fall because he was being aggressive in that manner, because that's kind of the way Lori painted a picture. She's just saying that he tried taking it from her because he didn't want her hitting him with it. And then she said that she didn't want him getting physical with her mom, that they fought all the time, but she didn't come out and say that he had a history of hitting me. I mean, maybe he did. Like I said, Charles might have been a complete asshole. I don't know. But it's not super uncommon for teenagers and parental figures to argue and to fight. That's not abnormal. Sometimes teenagers, adults, we say really mean things that we don't necessarily mean, but we shouldn't say them because you can't unring that bell. But, and some people just don't get along, and that happens. I just don't feel the same scenario that Lori gave doesn't feel the same with Tylee's rendition.
Like, my side.
Okay.
Yeah, and then from that, my mom said to go to the car, so I just got up and ran out the door.
Okay, did you see, when you fell towards your side, did you see what he did with the bat?
No, I wasn't really looking in that direction because from where I fell, the door was kind of more in my line of vision because I fell looking this way and the door was like right there, so I didn't look back.
So he was at a different line of sight than what you were looking at?
Yeah.
Okay. And then at some point you saw him kind of take a step back, and from what you're saying, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, you didn't necessarily see your uncle pulling back, but it seems like that maybe...
It seems like he wouldn't have taken a step back on his own, so it's more of an assumption than anything. I didn't see him physically take him back.
And does that make sense based on where your uncle was at that time?
Yeah, he was behind him, because he wasn't on this side with me and my mom, so he was behind him.
Okay.
Because that's kind of just the order where everyone walked out.
And when that happened and then your mom told you to go, did you see what happened with your stepdad and uncle?
No.
Okay. And then once you went outside with your brother, you never came back inside?
Oh, I went to go get my mom's purse
Okay.
from inside so that we could have, like, her wallet and everything, but this was all happening, like I said, like, in the bigger room right here, and so this is, I went through the garage door, and so the garage door is right here, and then there's, like, a little hallway, and then this is kind of where everything is, and then this is my mom's room.
Okay.
So when I went in, I kind of, like, just tuned everything out, ran to my mom's closet, ran back, so I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything.
When did you go back in and get her purse?
After my mom came out.
Okay. So after you heard that loud noise?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you heard the loud noise, was your mom outside or inside?
I'm trying to think. I think she was inside when it happened and the door opened like immediately after.
Okay. So very quickly after the door opened?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a long period of time because I remember not like thinking about it for that long, and if my mom hadn't come out immediately, I would have, been thinking about it for a lot longer than I had.
So obviously I don't know like your mom and stepdad and uncle like you do. I don't. So can you tell me kind of where the three of them were at kind of emotionally and how they were behaving when all this was happening?
When all this was happening or like before?
When all this was happening. So like when you came out of your room and he took the bat from you and...
Yeah, so my stepdad was like, he was like, I don't even know how to explain it. He honestly just looked like kind of a crazy person.
Okay.
Like screaming and like his face was beet red. He just looked like really mad. I remember when he took the bat from me, I saw his face for like a split second and I honestly like, it didn't even look like him. He just looked like pure like rage. Like he was just seeing red. So I haven't really seen him like all the way like that before. That's like the craziest I've ever seen him. And then my uncle was kind of calm, like not super calm. Obviously it was like a stressful situation, but he's like, I don't know, he was kind of just standing there in the doorway, kind of just being protective of my mom, but he wasn't yelling or really saying anything.
Okay.
And my mom was just kind of, he was yelling and my mom was kind of just like talking.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But you don't remember, if you do, like what your mom was saying at all or what he was mad about?
No, not really. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
Honestly, like,
We're talking about something that probably happened over 2 seconds of time. So.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like 2 seconds and 40 minutes at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I don't remember what they were really saying. I just kind of heard yelling over everything. I don't know. I kind of just do that whenever things are like really loud. I kind of just like tune what people are saying out because I don't know, just yelling isn't fun, obviously, for a kid to hear. And with my biological dad, I always heard him like screaming and stuff, so I kind of just learned how to like tune it out.
So when you woke up to yelling, and you had said you weren't sure what they were actually saying, did you know who was yelling when you heard the yelling?
Yeah, I knew it was my stepdad. Well, at first I kind of didn't. Like when you first wake up, you're kind of disoriented. And then I remembered that my stepdad was like coming in to take my little brother to school today, so I immediately like knew it was him. And then my uncle I knew was staying, so I knew that was him. And then my mom, obviously, I knew that was her. Yeah.
And then, so you stepped out of your room and you took the bat with you. Is there a reason why you took the bat with you?
Honestly, I think that was kind of just like first instinct. Like obviously I didn't ever hit him with the bat or anything like that. It was kind of just for like security, I guess, to know that I had it. I didn't do anything with it. In hindsight, I probably just shouldn't have brought it out at all because it caused more trouble but it was kind of just first instinct, and it was right by my bed. So I kind of just like jumped up and grabbed it.
Okay, I'm pausing her for a second because, like, I feel bad for her. It is not her fault. And obviously, you know, she can't be told this now or understand this now. I don't know what's on the other side or who had talked about this to her after, but absolutely not her fault. She didn't cause any of this. But here's what I think how it went down. I don't think Alex was in the room. I don't think he was in bed when Charles got there. And of course, JJ wouldn't have been able to articulate this because of his autism. And he wasn't really around for it all. So if Tylee and Alex didn't come out of the room at the same time, like Lori claimed, which I had a suspicion, again, I hadn't watched this part yet. I had a suspicion that she wasn't being totally honest and forthcoming there. It sounds like Alex was already out of the room. So I would imagine that Alex was already out of the room and ready and waiting for Charles to get there. That the only person who was truly genuinely in bed was Tylee. So she said her mom seemed calm. Well, because her mom was fulfilling a purpose. And so was Alex. Tylee didn't know that. But this is something that Lori, according to text records, had talked to Chad Daybell about Ned. Well, Charles wasn't Ned anymore. He was something else. And that was the code that they used for Charles. They called him Ned because it was like an alien being or a demon or whatever. They're kooky, religious, whatever. So this was something that was the prosecution is painting the picture that this was an intentional thing, that this was a plan that they were carrying out to the letter, and it was to fulfill a purpose, and that was to get rid of Charles Vallow. So I'm going to guess that Alex was up and was already with Lori and Charles when he first got there to take JJ. And it does not sound like this tussle on the ground with a bat really happened. Because the only person alive to say that it happened right now anyway is Lori. I don't know. I'm assuming that there is a video out there of, should probably look while this finishes up, of Alex from this day, but I don't know. I'm skeptical.
So I'm trying not to put like words in your mouth and stuff.
You're good.
So was there something in particular that you were concerned about that you would have taken the bat with you?
Only if he had been violent towards like me or my mom.
I'm assuming you're talking about your stepdad?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna take the bat and like do something with it. It was kind of just like, I need something in my hands to like feel safer.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my kind of second dumb question is, and I don't know that there necessarily is, but I always kind of want to make sure, is there anything that, you know, we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about or anything that you think is important or anything that I should know? Because it's harder for you because you were there, and so I'm asking questions about something I didn't even see. So I just want to make sure, like, I didn't miss something or anything that you think I should know about.
That was pretty much it.
Okay. And if you think of something, you know, in 5 minutes and tomorrow or whatever else, we can always talk again. It's totally fine. So I talked to your mom about, we have some victim services people that work here. They're not cops. They're really good at what they do. So I really want your mom to talk to them, because I think it would be good that your mom has, and you guys have some, maybe kind of some extra support if you need anything, kind of go moving on. So I'm going to check in with your mom real quick, and if she's good to go, then I'm going to introduce one of them to you guys. That way you guys can talk before I take you guys back. Okay? Sound fair? Yeah. Okay. Do you have any questions for me at all? No. Okay. If you do, let me know, okay? Okay.
Oops. So I did find the police interview between Alex Cox and law enforcement from the Chandler Police Department. That's like 2 hours. So I'm probably going to make that a separate segment. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight because there's other things that I should be doing that I'm putting off because I've been working on these videos. There's just so much for me to get caught up on and do because, you know, crime, it never ends, it never sleeps. There's a ton of cases that I want to work on and talk about. But I also kind of want to get caught up with the trial because this is supposed to go on for a couple of weeks. I did the first day today. I might start the second day and then work on it this weekend so that by Monday I'm ready for the second week and can actually do it live because that'd be kind of cool. Watch it live, be like I'm in the courtroom, but obviously not. So I don't know. So stay tuned. I might be back. Might not be. Thanks for watching.